All right, guys, so the first question we have today is an English question. The question is, where was iambic pentameter invented and how often is it still used?
Yeah, actually sort of addressed this in a question a few shows ago when we talked about the difference between an English sonnet and an Italian sonnet, or a Shakespearean sonnet and a Petrarchan sonnet. Let me pull up what I did then, and I will show you guys what we were looking at. To understand iambic pentameter, we'll just break down that term, iambic pentameter. And there might be at least one piece there that you'll know or you can help me figure out. This is maybe not going to be as helpful as I thought. But if we jump to my screen, I think I can still sort of get the point across. So this was a page that I'd done, again, we're looking at the sonnets, an English sonnet and an Italian sonnet. And when we were thinking about the sonnets, we had to think about rhyme scheme, and we're not going to worry about rhyme scheme right now. We're just going to think about what iambic pentameter is and think a little bit about its history and usage. Iambic pentameter refers to a certain meter of poetry verse. So in other words, it's like the number of syllables and the sets of syllables and their stresses. So the first part of this term, iambic pentameter, is iambic. Just highlight that here. And iambic refers to the idea of an iamb. And an iamb is a meter term in poetry that refers to the idea of having an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. And in English in general, every word that is multisyllabic, or any time that we're talking using multiple syllables, we stress and we unstress syllables. And this is something that native speakers of English don't really pay a whole lot of attention to. We do it so naturally. We know how words sound, so we don't think about it very often. But we then sometimes recognize it when people put stresses on words in an incorrect way. Maybe if they're learning English, or we recognize when somebody mispronounces a word. I'm trying to think of a word like exhaust, for example. People normally put the emphasis on the ost part of that, so people say exhaust. And the emphasis there is on the second syllable. There's two syllables, exhaust, right? And I can say it in a weird way where I say exhaust. Exhaust really does not sound correctly. I'm still using the exact same syllables, or I'm using the same words, but I'm putting the stress on the first syllable rather than the second. So in that word exhaust, it's normally pronounced exhaust, the syllable, the stress, falls on the second syllable there. So again, in iambic pentameter, the iamb part, or the iambic part, refers to the idea of having sets of meters, sets of syllables, where you have one unstressed syllable and then one stressed syllable. So the sentence here that I have is a famous line from one of Shakespeare's plays called Romeo and Juliet. And the sentence is, "But soft, what light through yonder window breaks." And there's a rhythm there where if we look at but soft, right? But is one syllable, soft is another syllable. And since we're thinking about iambic, since we want to put no stress on or less stress on the first syllable and more stress on the second, that would be read but soft, rather than but soft. I'm having a hard time even mixing up the stress because this is something that I understand, but to do it in a way that sounds natural is kind of tough. But that's sort of the concept here. So but soft, two syllables, I put the emphasis on the soft part. What light? What is the first syllable? Light is the second syllable. I'm putting emphasis on light. So then the second part of this term, iambic pentameter, is pentameter. So pentameter. Penta is a prefix that means 5. You may know this from math, where you may work with things like pentagons, which are 5-sided polygons. So again, penta means 5. So the idea is that you have 5 meters, 5 sets of meters in your verse or in your line of poetry, and they're going to be iambic meters, right? They're going to be these non-stressed and then stressed sets of syllables, as I just explained. So we're going to have 5 sets of those kinds of syllables for a total of 10 syllables in any given line. So if we look again at this example here from Shakespeare, I'll just count off with my fingers here. We have but soft, that's the first iamb. What light through yon der wind do breaks. So So if you're counting along with me there, that was 5 iambs or 10 syllables total. The iambic pentameter, I'm not sure who developed it, or if there's somebody that's known to be the original developer of iambic pentameter. I can look into that and see if that was something that, if there was a specific person. But in the time of Chaucer and Shakespeare, iambic pentameter is being used heavily. It's said that most of English poetry that's ever been produced has been written in iambic pentameter. And I do know that although iambic pentameter is often thought of as kind of an old style, an antiquated style, it definitely has a feel to it that is Shakespearean, and so that seems like it's definitely a older style. But there was a play written at least as recently as 2014 that was written in iambic pentameter. I cannot remember the name of the play right now. I think it's called King Richard III. But it was a more recent version of that. In any case, that iambic pentameter meter is still being used, but in the cases where it's being used today, it probably is being used to harken back to those earlier times, to maybe evoke feelings that we get from reading things like Shakespearean sonnets. So it's not really used in the same way today, but understanding it is definitely functional for being able to read Shakespearean texts. And while Shakespeare can seem like one of those things that English teachers force on you, that you just have to go through, there's a lot of good there and a lot to be experienced. So, anyways, I'll leave it there. I don't know who invented iambic pentameter. I just don't have a clue. But I'll have to look it up.
I'm kind of curious.
I feel like maybe it's just one of those things where it developed and there isn't a clear developer.
This just is a way of doing things.
Yeah, it may have just evolved over time, but I will look into it.